I'll take your time. Thank you so much. Delighted to be here in Derry today for my first visit to Derry as Taoiseach. I have a busy day of civic and political engagements. Really want to thank the Mayor of Derry for the warm welcome here to Guildhall. An important opportunity to talk about a number of the areas in which we're seeing cross-border cooperation. The northwest region on this island has so much potential, and with projects like the A5 and our determination to commit €600 million to that, and also then with the Ulster University expansion here in the city, there are so many opportunities. When I was Minister for Further and Higher Education, I was very determined to work with Ulster University to expand the footprint of Derry in this city from an educational point of view, but also to expand the opportunities for the Northwest to collaborate when it comes to education. We now have the Atlantic Technological University on one side of the border, we have Ulster University and Derry on the other, and the potential for them to do more together for the betterment of people, peace and prosperity is there for all to see. I'm really honoured to have been invited to deliver the John Hume and Tip O'Neill Memorial lecture. I look forward to having an opportunity during that lecture to reflect on the progress we've made, but also on the journey we need to travel in terms of reconciliation. And I should also say this, I'm delighted to be here in Derry, delighted to be in Northern Ireland at a time when we can truthfully say we have seen a real improvement of relations north, south and east and west. I know reset has been the word of the month, but for good reason. We had a great north-south ministerial council in Dublin only last Friday. The British Prime Minister, I had the honour of hosting him less than 2 weeks ago in Dublin, and we've a lot of work to do together now to fully harness the potential of the Good Friday Agreement.
We'll get as many questions as possible. Freya, far ahead.
Just in terms of Casement Park, obviously huge where you expressed your own disappointment around this. Is the Irish government willing to contribute more, and are you going to lobby the British government to put in more themselves?
Well, look, I know Casement and the decision around Casement by the British government did come as a real sense of disappointment to so many people. This had been going on for such a long time. There was a real level of expectation. You know, these two islands are going to host the Euros in 2028. What an incredible opportunity. And wanting Northern Ireland to be a part of that, wanting Casement to be a part of that, it was a legitimate expectation for so many people for so long. In fairness to the new British Prime Minister, in many ways he inherited this situation. He and I discussed it in July in Chequers, we discussed it in recent weeks in Farmley, and I know he did give it serious consideration. Not to speak for the British government, but my understanding is there were concerns around timeline in terms of being able to have a project ready at this stage for the Euros. However, let me say this, we have to from this moment on look forward in relation to this project. I thought the comments from the President of the GAA yesterday were excellent. I thought they were constructive, I thought they were pragmatic, I thought they were helpful, because we need a Casement. We need a GAA stadium in Belfast. We need somewhere that can host Ulster finals. We need somewhere that can host serious and important matches in terms of scale. And that's what needs to happen. So that's why I've been quick out of the traps to very firmly state that the Irish government commitment of €50 million stands in relation to this project. The Irish government is open to continuing to have conversations about anything more we can do to help. But we're not quite there yet. What we now need to see is what the British government and the Northern Ireland Executive wants to do next. I spoke to the President of the GAA yesterday. I'm hoping to meet the GAA in the coming days. I'll stay in contact with the First and Deputy First Minister and with Prime Minister Starmer. But let's now try and get a bit of forward momentum going in this for once and for all. That's what has to happen.
Just to be clear, you're not ruling out committing more.
I'm not ruling it out already, and at the moment my government has put €50 million on the table. Let's see what the British government now intends to do. And I should say this, I really welcome the fact that the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, Hilary Benn, will meet with the GAA this week and is engaging with stakeholders. This now has to be, what we now have is an opportunity for all stakeholders to intensively engage and work out how best to proceed. But what I've heard from everybody across the weekend is Casement's going to happen. Casement has to happen. The question is the timelines and the question is on what scale. We stand ready to assist in any practical way.
Taoiseach, the Taoiseach just said that recently he believes February would be the ideal time to hold the general election, and the talk of an election on the 15th of November is a lot of hot air. Should we take it now that February will be the date? And are there any concerns that the coalition part, the Fianna Fáil and the Greens, could take that be part of your plans? Could they take unilateral action in terms of forcing the timing of the election?
I don't know what time it is today, but it's the third time I think I've been asked a question about the general election, so let me give the answer again. The constitutional prerogative to seek a dissolution of the Dáil is mine, Taoiseach. I've been very clear, though, since becoming Taoiseach, that I want this government to go full term, and I've also been very clear that the three parties in government are working well together. I don't intend to provide a running commentary on what about this week, what about that month. That's not how we do politics. Politics outside of the media and political bubble is about making a difference in people's lives. It's about delivering for people. The government wants to go full term. The priority now is delivering the budget. The budget will be in less than just over 2 weeks' time, 2 weeks' time on Tuesday. That's our absolute focus. Delivering a cost of living package that will make a real difference to people between now and the end of the year, providing clear financial stability and a roadmap into 2025 through the budget, setting new housing targets. Absolutely important we set new housing targets, signing off on the National Planning Framework and passing key pieces of legislation like our Planning Reform Bill. Huge amount of work to do. In due course there will be a general election. I relish that prospect. I look forward to campaigning at that time and asking the people of Ireland to give me a chance, to give me a mandate and to allow me to continue as their Taoiseach. But the priority now is for the three parties in government to get on with the people's work, to deliver a budget and to let this government go full term.
But the leader of one of those parties, Neil Martin, just said even February is the ideal time.
I have a great relationship with the leaders of both parties, and funnily enough I talk to them about matters sensitive to government directly, as opposed to respectfully with yourself as an intermediary.
And
Taoiseach, you've said that you're not ruling in or ruling out further funding for Casement Park. What's your message to London, of course, where a lot of this will land with ministers over there and indeed with the Treasury? Do you think it's time for London to step up to ensure this happens?
Well, look, it's not for me to tell the British government what to do in relation to this matter, and I'm also very respectful that in the first instance Casement is very much a matter for the Northern Ireland executive working with the British government. Of course we have a vested interest. We have offered to provide €50 million, and of course we are in contact with the GA in relation to this matter. I do think it would be very helpful at as early a point as possible for all stakeholders, the British government, the Northern Ireland executive and the Irish government, to be able to show a way forward. I think that would be really helpful. I'm respectful of the process that Prime Minister Starmer needs to go through, and I don't intend to cut across that. I welcome the fact that the Secretary of State will engage with the GA. I believe he's due to meet them this week. I think that is a sensible way to proceed. Casement's going to happen. I've heard the First Minister say it, I've heard the Deputy First Minister say it, I've heard ministers in Northern Ireland say it. I know the British government wants to make progress in this too, and my position as head of the Irish government is clear. What we do now need, though, I think, in the brief time ahead, is absolute clarity on how you turn that ambition for Casement to happen into a step-by-step reality. And can I just make one other point, Michael? Can I just make one other point just in terms of the Euros? Whilst it has been bitterly disappointing for people in the north and for the GA with the decision in relation to Casement, all the understanding that I've outlined that I attach to that, we do still need to look at how we can make sure Northern Ireland benefits in some manner from the hosting of the Euros. You know, these two islands are going to host an incredible sporting spectacle that's going to bring significant economic, tourist and sporting benefit to the island. We need to make sure all parts of this island benefit, and I'm not the expert on these issues, but we remain ready to assist in any way, shape or form we can to make sure that Northern Ireland also benefits economically from the hosting of the Euros.
Amanda, after the bells.
One more question about Casement, but also about Derry, because we're in Derry at the moment. Do you believe that the reason that Casement isn't going to be built in time for the Euros, that sectarianism lies at the heart of why that isn't happening? And just with regards to the Northwest, obviously there's lots of sort of best practice in the Northwest because of its geographic spread. Donegal and Derry work very well together, but could you identify some areas where you think that the Northwest needs further investment and further assistance?
Yeah, so firstly, I don't believe sectarianism has anything to do with this. In fact, we have a British Prime Minister who, let's be honest, for the first time in a long time, is using language around co-guarantor of the peace process. He campaigned in a manifesto that talked about being a co-guarantor. He invited me to Chequers as his first guest within weeks of being in office. He has come back and visited me in Dublin since then. We have had substantive, detailed meetings and engagement, and we both take so seriously our roles as co-guarantors of the peace process. I think, and far be it for me to involve myself in British politics, but I think clearly the British government is obviously dealing with a number of issues it has inherited, including its economy, including its immediate fiscal reality, and including timelines in terms of when the Euros will take place. They're all matters for the British government to work their way through. What I know, though, and feel very confident as the Taoiseach of Ireland now, is that I have a willing interlocutor in Downing Street in terms of making progress on peace and prosperity across this island and across these islands. and I can genuinely say that the reset is real, the reset is warm, the reset isn't a slogan, because we've outlined the body of work that will now take place between now and next March's joint summit between the two governments. And I actually believe we could be at the dawn of the best relationship we've seen between an Irish and a British government in very, very many years, and that excites me, it energises me, and I won't allow any one individual decision disrupt that reality. In relation to Derry and Donegal, and indeed the region, I just think the Northwest region has so much potential. You know, there are people in Donegal coming and getting life-saving cancer treatment over the border in Northern Ireland today. There are medical students moving in both directions between Donegal and Derry, and indeed doctors, nurses and others in terms of our health service. I think the two big issues, though, I'm sure there are more, but the two that come to mind is connectivity in terms of infrastructure, and I mean things like road, potentially things like air, but generally improving the connectivity between the region, across the region, and between this region and the rest of the island. And secondly, the issue of critical mass of student numbers. I mean, when I was the Minister for Further and Higher Education in Ireland, I was very struck by the fact that there were many cities on the island of Ireland that had a smaller population than Derry, but a larger student population than Derry. That just doesn't make sense. And I think back, as I remember John Hume today, to his civil rights marches in the likes of the 60s, talking about access to education as a civil rights issue. It was then, it is now. And I'm so ecstatic that we're seeing very significant progress on both sides of the border in terms of providing opportunities for the next generation in terms of access to third level education. So there are two priorities.
Guys, I'm nearly out of time. Peter, over here.
Yeah, in terms of casement, there is a huge funding shortfall here. Costs have inevitably risen. As a result, will the Irish government stump up extra money to reflect those rising costs?
Well, firstly, I think in fairness to the Irish government, we've been very clear in terms of putting money on the table, €50 million, and reaffirming that despite or regardless of the decision of recent days, that €50 million still stands. I think that is a testament to our commitment. We didn't use this wrinkle as an opportunity to say, hang on a second, we'll have to reconsider our investment. In fact, we did the exact opposite. In terms of costs more generally, I think there's a fair few unknowns now that need to become known. Firstly, what will the ultimate cost of casement be in this new reality? And what is the funding level that each of the various parties and stakeholders are able to contribute? Only when we have clarity over that will we consider any further issues in relation to our investment. Thanks very much, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.